Hi, I'm Jill from June Taylor. We're so excited about these new camouflage sewing kits. It's all sew on the line, so super easy, even for beginners. And you create these gorgeous tote bags. So whether you're heading to the cabin or to the beach, to the grocery store, or your favorite restaurant for carry-out food, you can sew one of these. And it features our super easy zippity-doo-dah pre-sewn zipper, which is really easy to install. These tote bags are so large, they are perfect to fit your groceries in, your hunting gear, if you're a reader, your books, or even to head to the beach. And you can leave it open or you can zip it shut. They're available in 5 different camouflage fabrics, and again, so easy to make. Watch our step-by-step video that follows. Your kit is going to look like this. Let's open it up and see what it all includes. First of all, you're going to get your cut yardage of licensed camouflage fabrics. You're going to get your coordinating lining fabric, and you're going to get one of our zippity-doo-dah pre-sewn zippers. So this is a zipper that actually is built into a casing. So there's actually a casing on either side, and as you construct your tote, it's going to be very easy to put your project on each side of the zipper and stitch it directly in place using the casing. You're also going to get a plastic base, and this plastic base is used to stabilize the tote. You can leave it as is, or you can cover it with fabric if you like. And then of course you'll get printed instructions in addition to this video. You'll also get your printed insulated batting. So let's take a look at this. This is kind of has a little shine to it. That means it's going to insulate for warm or cold. Everything is going to be marked on the batting. Anytime you see a dotted line, that will be a sewing line, and a solid line will be a cutting line. Your kit will come with one of 5 licensed camouflage fabrics. We offer mossy oak in breakup country, mossy oak bottomland, mossy oak shadowgrass habitat. We also offer real tree edge and real tree extra. Our first step is to cut our fabrics. So from the licensed camouflage fabric, we're going to start out by cutting 2 pieces of 26 by 21 inch fabrics for the tote body. 2 of those. We're going to need 1 7-inch by 30 inch for the pocket, and we're going to need 4 pieces that are 4 inches by 30 inches, and those are going to be used for the straps. Then from your lining fabric, you're going to need 2 pieces that are 26 by 21 inches for the tote body. Cut apart the 2 tote pieces like we have here, and then you're going to want to trim around the edge of the solid line about a 1/2 inch to 3/4 of an inch. And I've got that done here. So I have a little margin on the edge, roughly about 3/4 of an inch. And then what you're going to do is layer this on top of your fabrics. And your fabrics are right sides together, so the right side of the lining matches up with the right side of the licensed camo fabric, and then our printed batting on top. And when we have that on top and everything's lined up, we're going to pin it in place and begin to sew. So we like to pin for sure at all the corners, and then a few places within the body as well. You can pin on an angle if you like. That really helps hold the pieces in place. And once all our pinning is done, then we are going to sew. And we are going to be sewing on the dotted line. So there's no sewing across the top because that's a solid line, but we're going to sew on the dotted line all the way around the edge of the tote, leaving the top solid line as is. So as you can see, we've stitched on the dotted line all the way around the sides and bottom edge of our tote. And I'll show you this, what that looks like on the back. And now we're going to cut on the solid line. So you want to take your scissors or a rotary cutter, and you can just begin cutting on the solid line. Now I've actually got that done here to save time, so now you can see what that looks like. Once you've cut on those solid lines, you are going to want to trim your corners. So what we like to do is just trim a little angle off that corner, making sure not to clip into your seams, but just actually just the corner like that. And then in this area here, you're going to see that there is a screen printed line that shows you you just want to nip right into that corner. And that's going to help when we turn right sides out. That's going to make a real nice crisp corner here. And when all that is done, we are going to turn right sides out. Prior to turning right sides out, I just want to mention that we will be sewing 2 complete sets of this. One for the front and one for the back of your tote. So when you have that done, 2 sets, you'll turn right sides out like this. And then if you have something that has a little bit of a point to it, like either a wood turner or a letter opener, you can get nice crisp corners in your tote bag. We use a letter opener here to do that. So for example, I can actually take this, has a little bit of a point, and it won't go through my seam allowance, and you can just kind of get that corner nice and crisply turned right side out like that. Our 2 body sections are done. Right sides are turned out, and we've got those corners nice and square. Everything is pressed. So here's one, and here's the other one. Now at this point, you can leave the tote bag as is, or you can put additional quilting on here. If you'd like to do something easy, we suggest that you use painter's tape or mark a line. You can do straight line quilting up and down, spaced every few inches, or you can add horizontal quilting as well, making a check pattern, or you can use diagonal quilting too, and that can be done in a little bit of a V-type pattern. If you have a hard time following a straight line, again, painter's tape is a great tool to use because you can stitch on either side and then it's repositionable. So if you'd like to add more quilting, now is the time. That is going to give your tote bag a little bit more body and a little bit more stability with extra stitching. You have 4 strap pieces cut, 4 inches by 30 inches. Let's take the first 2 and we're going to join these, but we want a nice mitered corner. So we're going to put right sides together and at a perpendicular positioning like this. So just line it up like this, and then take a marker and a ruler, and we're going to make a line from corner to corner, and that's going to be our sewing line. So if you want to put your ruler right on the edge like this, there we go, from corner to corner, and make a line. This is going to be our stitching line. So then you can put a pin right in here like this to hold this in place, and we would go to the sewing machine and sew along that line. We've actually got that done here, and that's what this looks like. So our line has been sewn, and now we are going to trim that down to 1/4 inch, open it up, and press that seam allowance open. So we'll go like this, and just to show you what it's going to look like. So we'll turn this over, press the seam allowance open, and I've got that done here. So you can see my seam allowance is pressed open right here. Now let's turn it over so you can see how nice that mitering looks. On the wrong side of our first strap, we're going to press up a 1-inch hem from the raw edge. So just fold your fabric up 1 inch and press. And you're going to do that on both of the short ends, like this. Do that on the other end as well. Then we're going to take our strap and we're going to fold it in half on the long edge like this and press. And what that's going to do, it's going to create a center reference line so we know where the center of this strap is. Okay, so let's open this back up, and you can see that center pressed line is right here. Now we're going to take our raw edges and press them up to that center line on both sides, or I should say on the top and the bottom, like this. All right, so you do one here, and then you would go back and you would do the same here, pressing those edges up to that center reference line like this, okay? All the way along the edge of the strap. And then when that's done, we are going to fold one more time. So I've got finished edges on both sides, and we're going to press. And then we're going to go back to the sewing machine and we are going to sew close to both finished edges on the bottom and on the top. I've got that done here so you can see what the strap looks like. This is one of two, so now you're going to do the exact same thing to your second two strips. Our straps are done. We're going to work on the pocket. You have one piece cut that's 7 inches by 30 inches. You're going to fold right sides together like this, so you have 7 by 15, and you are going to sew across this top edge in a 1/4 inch seam allowance. Our stitching has been done, so we're now going to turn right sides out, and we're going to give it a little press right along that seam line. So here are our right sides out, and let's get that press nice and flat up here, like this. And now we're going to basically just do a nice top stitch right along this edge. My top stitching is done on the pocket, and now I'm going to press the bottom edge. So my pocket's nice and flat. And then what you're going to do is take the body of your tote and bring it down, and what we're going to do is we're going to center this pocket over the base with a stitching line at the top. This is going to be centered 3 1/4 inches in from the edge. So get a tape measure or ruler and find your 3 1/4 line and make a mark, and do the same on the other side. Find about 3 1/4 and make a mark. And now you can take your pocket and center it over your marks like this. Okay, and we're just going to top stitch this, sew this right down onto the bottom of our bag in a 1/4 inch seam allowance. So now our pocket is attached at the bottom. You can still see it's loose here. Okay, so we're going to lay that nice and neat. Now we're going to get our straps, our finished straps, and we're going to place those and pin those. So what we want to do is measure in from the outside about 2 3/4. And that's where your strap is going to start, right here. And you'll notice that's exactly centered over the edge of the pocket. So you're going to put a pin in there, and then you're going to continue to pin as you center that strap over our pocket. This is where our pocket's going to be. And you're going to center that strap and continue to pin. Okay, and then as you bring it around, just make sure, as you bring this handle around, make sure that you're not twisting it and bringing it around like this. Okay, before I put any more pins in, I'm going to go about 2 3/4 inch in from this side, which is right here, and put my strap edge here, and you'll also notice that it's centered right over that pocket again. So you're going to want to pin that in place and bring it all the way up. You might want to add some extra pins in here as well. Okay, and now let's go move this up a little bit. After you've got that all pinned into place, you want to have an area that is we're going to sew these on eventually, but we want to stop sewing 3 inches down from the bottom. So take a tape measure and find about where that point is. So 3 inches from the top is right here. So let's put a pin right here, so I know when I start sewing that's where I'm going to stop. I like to put double pins in, and that kind of reminds me, okay, this is where I need to stop sewing. And do the same on the other side. So you want to go down about 3 inches here as well. Put a pin in right here. Okay. And then we're going to put another pin right next to it to remind us to stop sewing. Okay, so let's review that one more time. We're going to have our straps pinned over our pocket. We are now going to sew on both sides of the strap close to the edge, all the way up to our double pins, go across and sew down. And then do the same on this side. Go all the way up to your double pins, go across, and come down. That will have the pocket side strap finished. Now let's take the side of the tote that does not have pockets and center those straps. So we're going to do that similarly by taking our tape measure. There's no pocket here now. And we're going to go in 2 3/4 inches, which is about right here. And we're going to put our strap here. And let's put a pin there, so we keep that secure. All right. And we're going to do the same on the other side as well. So this is going to go straight up. And then remember, we're going to come down about 3 inches from here. Let's put another pin here because that's where we want to stop sewing. There we go. And we're going to do the same on this side of the bag. Once we bring our handle around like this, we're going to go in 2 3/4 inches, position our strap, and sew up to about 3 inches away from the top. You can see our handle is sewn on, and we stopped about 3 inches from the top and stitched on both sides. Once the handles are on, that also really helps hold the body in place like this. So the next step is we're going to add our zippity-doo-dah pre-sewn zipper. So let's push the handle back like this, and this is the raw edge of the top. If you want to stitch that shut, you can. Don't necessarily have to. You're going to take your zippity-doo-dah zipper, and what you're going to do is kind of make sure that you have the zipper centered over the top. Open the casing, and we're just going to nest our tote body into the zippity-doo-dah zipper like this and pin it in place. And then we'll sew right on this edge. So let's put a couple pins in to hold it in place, like that. And I'm going to go down a little bit more, taking the tote body, making sure all layers get put inside the zippity-doo-dah casing and pin. Till everything is in. So you can see the casing will lay just like this. You'll pin that all the way down, and then you'll come back up here and you will sew very close to the edge of zippity-doo-dah casing, right along here. Now that our zipper is sewn in, you can see our straight stitching on the edge. We're halfway there. Our next step is to take the other tote body, put the handle back, and at this time you want to try to match up the edges of both totes so that they line up with each other. Open the casing and take all your layers from the other side of the tote bag and tuck it in zippity. So again, you're just going to want to make sure the edges of your tote line up so that when we put our tote body together, right sides together, this will all be nice and straight. So open the casing, put our project inside, pin, and we're going to sew right along this edge right here. Our zipper is completely sewn in now. So what we're also going to do is have you stitch over the ends of the zipper the short direction, just so that we don't accidentally lose our zipper pull. And we've already gone ahead and done that, just a little straight stitch across that zipper. And then what you're going to do is trim that so it's nice and close to the edge of our tote bag, and we will do that on both sides. Now we're going to unzip this a little bit because eventually we're going to have to turn right sides out. So let's make sure that our zipper is open a little bit right here in the center. And then what we're going to do is fold right sides together like this, and keeping our handles free, we are going to sew in a 1/2 inch seam allowance across the bottom, as you see here. So you can put a couple of pins in and sew in a 1/2 inch seam allowance. And you're going to also sew both sides shut. So to do that, your zipper is going to fold right over itself like that. line that all up nice and even, and sew your sides in a 1/2 inch seam allowance, both right. And then you'll do the same over here. Fold your zipper over itself like this, line up the sides, pin, and sew in a 1/2 inch seam allowance, bottom and sides. So the bottom seam is sewn and the sides are sewn. Next we have to deal with the gussets, and those are the corners. So what you're going to do is you're going to actually take your tote bag and lift it like this and open that gusset, and we're going to pin in the opposite direction. So our side seams are going to match with the bottom seam like this, and we're going to pin all those layers together, and we're going to sew across the gusset in a 1/2 inch seam allowance. So to do that, we want to line up the 2 seam allowances like this. We know they're in the center. And then what you're going to do is take your pins and pin, you can pin from the center to the outside edges like this. And again, we're going to sew in a 1/2 inch seam allowance. Okay. When you get to this point, there's a lot of bulk here. So you're going to want to open up those seam allowances like this when you sew so that there's less bulk here. Now let's go over to the other side, and we will put some pins in there as well. And as you're sewing over those seam allowances, you just might want to take it a little bit slow so that you make sure that you don't have a problem with your machine needle. So again, those seam allowances are going to be open on both sides. Now let's go to the other corner. You see this is open, and we're going to pull it the opposite direction, and again line up the seam allowances one on top of each other, pin toward the outside edges, and that's where we're going to sew in a 1/2 inch seam allowance. So let's get this pinned, and so we're going to sew right across here in a 1/2 inch seam allowance. Now I'll get my other side pinned. Seam allowance is open when we sew. So the gussets are now sewn on both sides. You can see that that's finished off, and how nice all our side seam allowances, our bottom seam allowance are all finished for us already. So the last step is we now need to open the zipper and turn right sides out. So this is the fun part. Our tote is nearly done. Once this is right sides out, we'll add our plastic base, and I'll just kind of show you what those gussets look like once they're sewn. So it's a very nice finished edge there. All right, we'll turn this right sides out too, and we can get our zipper going here. All right, and then let's take our plastic base that you see here. You can leave this as is, or you can cover it with fabric if you like, and you're going to put that right in here like this, and your tote is complete.